Welcome in to another new podcast from Coatings Pro Magazine. I'm your host, Ben Duvos, and I'm the news editor for the AMP Publications team. AMP, of course, is a shorthand acronym for the Association for Materials Protection and Performance, of which Coatings Pro is a member magazine. Today, in this September 2025 sponsored episode, we're chatting with Pamela Novak, Vice President of Finance and HR at JetRock. Pamela, thank you for taking the time to join us. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, as well as some things about JetRock as a company?
Hi, Ben. Thanks for having me and JetRock. I am, as you stated, the VP of Finance and HR here at JetRock, but I also am the international sales liaison. So I handle a couple of our customers that are overseas, which is always a little bit of a challenge due to language barriers and such, but we make it work. To tell you a little bit about JetRock, we were formed back in 1993, flagship product for one of our top installers, Future Flooring, both Maryland-based commercial flooring companies and founded by Bill Blake. Bill is our major shareholder here at JetRock and very influential in how the business is ran and how the products are developed. In the years, our initial success was both domestic and international, which has allowed us to spawn into our own separate entity here at JetRock, being the manufacturer of the epoxy and resin flooring products that we manufacture and sell. And we still are across the United States with multiple installers nationwide and a few installers internationally as well.
So here at Coatings Pro, we cover the commercial flooring market, and we've got lots of case studies each year. We've had at least a couple JetRocks this year, but there are others as well. So there's no shortage of options or competition in that space. You can go from tile to epoxy and urethane cement. What is it that makes JetRock really stand out amongst that group and in that overall landscape?
That is a wonderful question, and actually a question that does come up out with the sales team when they're trying to educate potential clients on an installation. But to start out, our legacy product, which is called Jet Grip, it is a single application system. And what this means for any potential client is that JetRock can be installed quickly in a single step without the need to go back for additional work, which we, for instance, top coating. Our Jet Shield, which is the urethane cement, while that is a two-step and typically a 2-day process due to the additional top coat, it does provide exceptional protection from heat, especially in like your commercial kitchen applications. Both systems were designed to cure extremely fast, less than 8 hours in most cases, and our slurries are reinforced with a polymerized quartz. The structural integrity combined with exceptional bonding, it means that it will not delaminate like your typical run-of-the-mill epoxy and acrylic coatings. And additionally, our polymerized quartz is only available in the United States through JetRock. We are the only U.S.-based distributor of the quartz here.
So if you're looking at it from the perspective of an end client, a business owner, a company like that, what would you say the value proposition is in going with JetRock as compared to, a tile or VCT type of system?
We do like to be completely transparent with our potential customers, and we do try to advise them on the fact that JetRock is absolutely an investment in the business. This is not intended to be a temporary fix or even a cheap alternative. The upside to JetRock is that it is basically maintenance free. It does eliminate the cost of the periodic maintenance, which comes along with like a VCT or a tile for, lifting or cracked tiles. You won't see that with a JetRock product. It also helps to reduce or eliminate health department violations, the potential workers' compensation issues that can arise from slips and falls. And additionally, if you consider the time, cost, maintenance, something for like tile with replacement, regrouting, cleaning, and the health department trigger, which is the bacteria that gets into the grout lines, it tends to breed. JetRock becomes a one-time investment in a floor, being more cost-effective for the business long-term compared to other technologies. And for anyone who might be considering it on the financial side, one thing that I would always look at would be is how does it play down the road? It becomes a capital investment of sorts on on the financial side. So it's, over years, it pays for itself. You wind up paying less because you don't have the maintenance, the repairs, your workers' comp hopefully improves, your rating improves. And it winds up being a better investment overall from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, that's a really good point because upfront cost is not everything. There's obviously a cost both in terms of time and logistics to repeated maintenance cycles. And so if the higher upfront cost can minimize those, then potentially it pays for itself in time. That's a very important concept, I think, for clients to keep in the back of their minds. As far as
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I do agree sitting in the financial seat myself and handling international sales, that is always a bullet point that I want our sales team to kind of drive home is that, you know, you kind of get what you pay for. So if it's cheaper in the beginning, you're going to pay for it in the long run, where at least with JetRock, your initial financial, in the long run, you're not going to have time down where your floor has to be fixed and you can't utilize that specific area because, you have wet grout or tiles are up. So I think it is the upfront cost can be a little off-putting a little bit, but if you look at it in the long run, it's definitely an enhancement that pays for itself.
Yeah, and ultimately, so much of this comes down to education and getting clients to see the big picture. I'm just curious, do you see your clients getting more aware on that front? Is the market getting, I guess, more accustomed to considering the total life cycle?
I believe they are. I know our sales team, when they get involved directly with an end client, because a lot of the times our installers will do it, but I think that when our sales team is directly involved, that is one thing that they do share that, and it's not just, I mean, JetRock obviously, because of the technology, tends to outlast any other epoxy out there, from my understanding. But I do think that they are starting to understand, and when they bring in their financial people, that it starts to make a little bit more sense.
So what kind of areas can JetRock be installed in? We mentioned commercial flooring earlier, but diving down a little more specifically, what types of areas are we talking about?
The main focus, the niche, really comes into be in the commercial kitchens that have high foot traffic. And that's really what the product was designed for and where you can see the most benefits. But it's not to say that's the only place it can be installed. We've also had our products installed in walk-in coolers, restrooms, processing plants, hospitals, retirement homes. It's really just what JetRock is. It's got this little kind of grippy texture to help prevent slips and falls. So it's not your beauty product. And I wouldn't think that this would be something you would want in the front of your house of your business, like a restaurant or your main lobbies. But there's no rule that says you can't. Again, I would say that that would be more of the clients, what they're trying to gain aesthetically, but, commercial kitchens is mainly what we go for, but again, it can be used in any application a customer deems appropriate.
And a lot of it comes down to the safety component, right? You would put it in locations where, the grip is particularly important for a few reasons.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously in the kitchen, you have lots of moisture in there with things of that nature, but, I mean, if it were me, I would even say when you have, if you have a customer-facing establishment, and when you first come in your front door and it's raining out and their shoes are wet or you have, dress shoes on that are slippery, it wouldn't even be a bad idea to have it at the front door to help, kind of break that initial resistance, and there's a lot of uses, and I think that, with proper education, as you mentioned earlier, JetRock has unlimited potential with any kind of establishment.
I saw on your website and some of the literature and other resources available there that JetRock can be installed directly over tile or existing flooring. Is that right? And how does that generally work?
Yes, absolutely. That's normally how JetRock is installed. They say your overnight tile solution, it does go in over tile predominantly. That's basically what the main is. It's not that they don't go in, they do new builds over fresh concrete, which is obviously a solution, and going over, certain types of prepared properly plywood. But going over tile is the biggest thing. It means that they don't have to do all the demos, they don't have to tear out the old tile. We always would recommend any loose tiles be taken up, cuts down on the mountain of debris that has to go to the dump and, so on and so forth. But tile, for example, the installer would simply grind it as needed, replace any cracks, missing tiles. We have a filler as part of our JetRock system that he could use to do that. Then they'll put the formula down. It can go over concrete tile, VCT. One thing we do not recommend, especially with the code base, is going over metal, and that is just because of metal's temperature variations, it shrinks, it expands, things like that. And it may not fully bond and it could potentially crack. But as far as going over tile, that is the niche. That is, the solution to your cracked tiles in any establishment, because you don't have to do so much demo, and the turnaround time can be very quick for the repair.
We talked earlier about the concept of a total life cycle of a floor. So with JetRock specifically, what is the lifespan that we're talking about if someone installs one of these systems? Basically, how long could the customer expect that floor to last?
That question does come up in our discussions with potential clients, and they tend to use the term period to maintenance. Both Jet Grip and Jet Shield, the structural integrity holds up for a period of about 8 to 10 years, as long as the area was properly prepped and installed, is cleaned following our guidelines. At around the 3-year mark, the finish may fade a little bit and lose its luster, but this is 99% a cosmetic change and is not the change in the actual material or the structure or the adhesion.
You mentioned cleaning and following the guidelines. Can JetRock be cleaned just like any other floor?
No, it cannot. Unlike other floors, you cannot use a mop. Multiple reasons. It will destroy the mop, and then it kind of gets embedded in there. But we recommend a neoprene squeegee and using a duck brush along with a neutral non-enzymatic cleaning solution. The majority of the time, we hear that our clients prefer to use something as easily obtainable as Simple Green.
Can you walk us through what those steps are and how it actually works?
Absolutely. Basically, you just have to add approximately 1 quart of your preferred cleaning solution into 5 gallons of hot water. Again, we recommend products along the lines of an Ecolab high performance natural cleaner. Swisher has a wonderful one, which is Swisher Citrus Power, or Dawn Heavy Duty, and of course the Simple Green. You would take your mixed solution and just pour it onto the floor, let it sit for about 3 to 5 minutes, and then take a squeegee and push the soiled water into a floor drain. If it so happens that the location doesn't have a soil drain, it can just as easily be cleaned up with a wet vac. For certain stubborn stains like juices, syrups, cooking oils, sticky, oily, if you just scrub it with a deck brush, then you can squeegee it down the drain or clean it up with a wet vac. Simple as that.
You mentioned having the proper preparation before the installation phase. For both the customer that's curious as well as an installer that's looking to actually install this system, can you talk a bit more about that process? How does the actual installation work?
Obviously, every case is a little different. The expectation is that the area would be ready for a JetRock install when the installation team arrives, meaning that equipment is removed, plumbing and electrical considerations have been addressed. And also important to note that not all the installers will do equipment removal. So it's important that a client and an installer set up a plan of action prior to the team arriving and starting the installation of the floor. But from there, the preparation from the installer is absolutely critical. We cannot stress that enough. But depending upon the situation, it could require a decontamination cleaning, a diamond grinding, filling of grout lines or voids from removed tiles, etc. The JetRock, obviously, the installation is only as good as the installer's preparation.
So, in addition to the importance of preparation, what else should potential installers or customers be aware of in that process?
Outside of the preparation, the most critical piece is going to be the temperature. The cure time of the product is highly dependent upon the existing floor and the materials temperature. So, for example, if we're at 75 degrees Fahrenheit, both the Jet Grip and Jet Shield are dry to the touch in approximately 3 to 4 hours. At 4 to 6 hours, they're ready for light foot traffic, and equipment can be replaced around the 8 hour mark. However, if that temperature sways a little bit, let's say to 60 degrees, those times could be doubled. And then at 90 degrees, they can be cut in half in some cases. For those reasons, we highly discourage JetRock to be installed below 65 or above 85. But in addition, the temperature of the area where the product is stored prior to the installation on site for the client must also be taken into account.
All right. So once everything's been adequately prepped and the project area is ready to go and you've got your environmental concerns addressed, all that good stuff, give me a ballpark for how long a typical installation actually takes.
Typically, we say it will take about a day. A full installation crew typically is able to install up to about 2,000 square foot per day. Most Jet Shields installations take 2 days because they do need to come back and do the additional top coat after the first coating is cured. Of course, this is not every situation, and it is dependent on multiple variables, such as the temperature and the equipment being removed. But they also have to take into consideration the size of the installation crew and the overall size of the installation area.
Speaking of those installers, what's their relationship with JetRock? Are they employees? Are they related to your company in any way? What's the relationship between a specialized company such as JetRock and the installers that are actually putting these systems on the ground somewhere?
Well, our authorized installers, they are their own entities. They are ultimately clients of JetRock. We manufacture the product, they install it, um, they purchase from us. So they are their own businesses set up in their own states. And they don't only install JetRock, they have other flooring systems that they are also acquainted with and install as well. So, no, they are not JetRock employees, but they have all undergone their real-time training with our products, and since completing that, they are authorized to purchase our material and sell it and install it for the end client.
So basically, they're independent contractors and you guys are pretty much the manufacturer, correct?
Correct. Exactly. Yeah, JetRock is the manufacturer, and we also do our own distribution, but we deal 99% with authorized installers. We do have a sales team here, and they take on the sales role. They educate potential customers on JetRock's value and benefits, and they will also kind of link a potential end user with an authorized installer and provide leads to the installers that might come in through our website or any shows that we might participate in. With that being said, we also do have some larger corporate accounts or multi-unit opportunities where JetRock could be being installed in multiple locations. And at that level, JetRock Corporate does take a more hands-on approach as kind of an intermediary between the client and the installer.
So if someone wants to buy your material, can anyone do that or is it only an authorized installer?
The honest answer to that is kind of anybody can purchase it. But we do not sell retail as a standard. We're not a retail-based company. Currently, we're not. And we don't have a typical process in place as other epoxy manufacturers might have. We don't have like a specific customer service line for helplines or tutorials or instructions, etc. And due to the scope of the larger products, it's not usually feasible for your typical do-it-yourselfer to purchase kits and do a self-installation. If you think of it like redoing your driveway, some people can certainly purchase the concrete and the tools and do it themselves, and others are not so fortunate to be able to do it, and they would need to hire a professional. So I guess the best answer would be yes, we would happily sell someone our materials, but they would have to sign the waiver that says that, there's basically no warranty outside of the product itself. So if you buy it yourself and then install it yourself, there's only warranty stating that the material that we sold you is of good quality and it kind of ends. There's no installation warranty with that where you would get that with an installer.
So if one of our coatings contractors that's listening right now is curious about taking the step to become an authorized installer for you all, what's the process in that?
It's actually a very simple process. The biggest hurdle that we see is the scheduling. Basically, what will happen is they'll start with some paperwork and a conversation with their respective JetRock sales representative in that region. They would ask for, an application, proof of insurance, credit references, all the financial things that, us dollar people like. And then going on from there, depending on what part of the country the installer is potentially located in, they would work with a rep to determine whether or not the potential installer would like to come to our headquarters here in Baltimore, Maryland for training, or if we would send a team out to them. And given that we use the actual inventory off of our shelves to conduct the training, we do charge when we do on-site training versus when they come to Maryland. If an installer decides they want to come to Maryland, there's no charge for that. They would just have to be responsible for their own transportation and lodging. So it's just a little bit of documentation logistics and scheduling logistics. Other than that, they come in, they train, or we show up there and train, and it's a rather gentle process.
How does the training actually work? What's that process like?
The training typically is about a day and a half worth of training. It begins with obviously introductions. We cover a little bit about who JetRock is and what we do. And from there, we'll turn it over to the director of product development. His name is Dave, and he's wonderful. He starts with a tabletop demonstration of all of our product lines so that everybody can kind of at least get a feel for them. And then he'll move it on to the floor for an actual simulated floor and code-based installation using actual JetRock materials, typically over a masonite. And given this is literally a hands-on training, we always ask that those who are coming in for the training are the ones who would be actually doing it out in the real world, and for them to dress appropriately. The second day is usually about a half a day. It's typically just kind of going back over the previous day's work, covering the administrative side of business and doing a little Q&A and just kind of making sure everybody is comfortable with what they've learned, that they're ready to go out and, give it a try.
Really good intel there from Pamela Novak, Vice President of Finance and HR at JetRock. For any of our listeners that might want to reach out to JetRock or learn more, maybe it's an installer that wants to become authorized, maybe it's a customer that wants to get a quote. What's the best way that someone listening to this can get in touch with you all?
The best way to get in touch with us is to go directly to our website, which is www.jetrockinc.com. For interested installers, they can click on the tab that is titled Become an Installer. If you're interested in getting a quote, you can submit your information to the Contact Us tab and fill out all the information. And you'll also find the contact information for each of our sales representatives throughout the country if you'd rather deal with them directly one-on-one.
Pamela, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
All right, that will do it for today's episode. And if you want more resources from our end at Coatings Pro, just check out our website at www.coatingspromag.com and search for the Coatings Pro interview series wherever it is that you listen to your podcasts. Coatings Pro is a member magazine of AMP, the Association for Materials Protection and Performance, and you can learn more about AMP and its resources at amp.org, ampp.org. Until next time, this is Where We Break. For Pamela Novak, I'm Ben Dubose. Thanks again, as always, to each of you for listening, and please come back soon for another new Coatings Pro podcast.